alliance within or affiliated with, or a transfer corporation affiliated
Hoots, you're breaking up bad.
with actually Pandemic Legion itself. Oh, I am? Well, the good news is that I'm not breaking up on my end, and that's for the recording. But am I really still breaking up?
No, you're good now.
Ooh.
Is
No, you're
anybody
fine.
still
Okay.
here?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're clear to me.
All right. Perfect. But no, the good news, I'll have to edit this part out then. But the good news is that the feed or the actual recording should be good just because I record my audio on a separate track. But no, it was and I'm looking for the actual
It's not a big deal.
corporation.
Oh,
Nah.
Havoc. I'm looking at it right now.
Yep.
So the corporation was called Havoc, and it was used by a pandemic legion to handle sovereignty transfers between alliances like this. But apparently Concord tried to take the ISK, and then for whatever reason they found that the automatic payment wasn't checked. So when they tried to pull the ISK, it said nope, it's not automatic payment. So when the time came, they said, "Up, you lose sovereignty." Now, why is this such a big deal? So the big deal that this was PL's and N3's staging system for the quote unquote Halloween war. That's now pretty much the Winter War. Um, and that means that they have all of their strategic assets, or most of, I would assume, most of their strategic assets in the station. They have probably a number of posses that are around that have various ships logged off in the posses and so forth. And so if CFC and the Rush, or whatever they're being called, coalition are able to take control of this system, they can block out access to anybody except for friendlies to them, which includes abandoning or having PL and anybody else who has stuff in that station having to abandon stuff in that station. So before we get too far into this, apparently once this happened, they realized it and put up a TCU. TCU's territorial claim units take approximately 8 hours to online. Somebody noticed this. I don't know how, if they were watching, Dotlands feeds or just watching the sovereignty changes come through. And they sent a scout over to see what was going on, and they noticed that a TCU was onlining. So this was CFC slash Rush big chance, and they committed a decent sized capital for it.
All
And
Oh,
right.
stop
I
yelling.
told you to stop because yeah, I lost the call completely.
all right, audio's back. Everything's back up. So where was
Nope,
I?
hold on though, because the audio is not back on my end.
Oh, okay.
Audio is back. Okay.
I don't think Kuda's back. Call failed.
Yep, Kuda is not back.
All right, while we're doing that, please stand by while we work out technical difficulties. It was. There we go. All right, we should
All right,
be broadcasting again.
all right.
Let me know when you are ready to.
Let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
So where did we leave off?
It doesn't matter. You were talking about the strategic importance of this system as the Pandemic Legion staging system. They have strategic assets there. So the sovereignty dropped, and CFC and the Russians decided to capitalize.
All
Now,
right. Yep.
now I want to add one thing to that, is that from what I've been hearing is not only was it a dotland notice, but again, because of the metagame, there were plenty of CFC spies on the Noli, Secunda, and PL side who, as soon as they saw what happened, immediately went ahead and notified the CFC, whereupon it was broadcasted on IRC, Jabber, Twitter, you name it. So that's what actually supposedly got the ball rolling. If anyone else knows any different, please let us know.
Yeah, so that happened, and then I don't know the exact number of capitals that were initially committed, and I don't know if that's brought up anywhere. Obviously not all the Titans jumped in at the same time and so forth. But so at some point a certain amount of CFC capitals were committed to try to take down the TCU that was onlining, and PL online, or PL/N3 also committed a number of capitals, and I say capitals and I just mean anything from carriers to dreadnoughts all the way up to super carriers and Titans, because that's all capital class ships. When someone says supers, they usually mean super carriers, just to clarify some terminology. With that said, that battle started. Now this battle not planned, so we didn't have reinforced node. I think the max number we had in system was approximately 2,200, give or take a bit. So that's a big difference.
2,600.
Okay, so 2,600. That's a big difference. Just thinking back to the fight in HED like a week before, where you had the node crashed and actually ended up causing lots of issues. People were DCing, and then eventually the node crashed it. So to try to prevent that, CFC had
that's simply not true. The HED node never ended up crashing. You had soul-crushing lag, but the node itself stayed up throughout the entire fight. They briefly took down GTAC 0 to do some remapping, but HED did not crash.
All right, so it effectively crashed through soul-crushing lag.
Okay.
Anyways,
no, that's why the Russians lost so many forces, or not so many forces, so many dreadnoughts. Because had it actually crashed, those dreadnoughts would definitely have not logged back in, and losses probably would have been better for the CFC and Russ. But performance for BTAC-R was better. It was still, 10% tie-dye, 2 hours of simulation over 21 hours, but it was better.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was because forces, both the CFC and Pandemic Legion, kept things, I guess, restrained. There wasn't two full Dominix fleets dropping all of their sentry drones all over the place to bring the node screeching to a halt. But yeah, eventually at one point both sides decided to go all in, and it was when Nully and Pandemic Legion decided to disengage, is apparently when they lost most of their Titans.
That's when the bloodbath actually started, because as they were trying to evac out the goons that effectively blockaded the area, so they just basically a turkey shoot.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that the beginning part of it was fairly one to one. The one Titan down on each side and so forth. And it is interesting to note. We talked about it, I think, before we went live, is that I believe the Ragnaroks for the Minmatar Titans were primaried, at least I think on both sides. I'm not sure. Were primaried because they have the least effective hit points out of all the Titans, just theory crafting wise, I guess, or whatever. but the way that there's a number of ways that the total number of people in system were artificially capped, and I don't mean that from CCP side, just from the what ended up happening. First off, you had a number of subcapital fleets on either side of the BTAC-R system, or protecting it from anybody trying to sneak in with the subcapital fleet without a Titan bridge or something, of course. And when they did that, they're not choosing not to go into the system themselves and try to get free capital kills or free Titan kills. So it's kind of an honor system of you're going to sit out here and do God's work, so that you don't, so to protect the Titan, so that there's no overloading of the node and whatnot. So I guess with that, what else do you guys kind of thoughts on this? I guess is it good for Eve's, bad for Eve? As we said, mainstream press all around.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag, actually. I mean, overall, it is good for Eve because it does give it some well-needed press. My only worry about it is that as the fights get bigger and bigger and more expensive, there's kind of like a kind of race to the top, in that the fact that will mainstream media only start covering new Eve stories if the lost amount keeps going. So, say for instance, next week we have an event where a bunch of Titans are lost, and it only ends up being, say, 150,000. Will mainstream media say, "Oh, well, that was only 150. Call us when you have like half a mil." So that's my only worry about that. Then there's the other issue of, can CCP capitalize on all the mainstream news coverage and convert those eyeballs on stories into butts and chairs playing the game?
Well, and remember that the Battle of Asakai was had a huge surge of new players, and we are what? It's Wednesday. The battle was Monday, into late Monday night, into early morning Tuesday Eve time. So you're talking about less than 2 days, and we're already seeing in the new player activations or new player numbers that are up. I saw on the ETH subreddit today. So we're already seeing some surge coming in after this big fight with all the news coverage. I know I saw it today. There was somebody talking about playing with their daughter, which is kind of interesting. But
a 10-year-old daughter, like, cringe.
But anyways, so the next thing I wanted to mention, though, is the expectation of those people coming in, kind of to what Lank said. This big Titan battle gets all the news, but at the end of the day, nobody starting out with nothing, who knows nothing about Eve, is going to be able to just jump in and get into a kill on anything. They're not going to be able to like join any of the N3 coalition, or they're not going to be able to join CFC right away unless they know somebody or something like that. So they're prime targets. I actually read today somebody got scammed trying to get into Goonswarm. Somebody newer. I don't know if they were brand new. Yeah,
that's a daily occurrence. Well, it brings us back to the stark reality of what Eve really is. When you mention to the average layfolk or casual gamer or gamer from another genre, say a traditional MMO, they think space, they think fast action, they think pew pew. They have a certain expectation in mind when it comes to a spaceship game. What they're actually going to be jumping into is basically submarines in space. It is not fast paced. It is a very difficult game. And this is where, again, how can CCP capitalize on the coverage when there's so many fundamental systems within the game that have been ignored and haven't been fixed, that it does not make it a conducive place for a new player to try on? I mean, we've all talked about and we all ranted about the miserable new player experience. You're going to have all these people try the game for an hour, get frustrated, and leave. you know,